That's how I kind of switched my path. Yes, if you hate what you're doing now, or if you can't find a role that you're doing now, think about it in a different lens. You don't have to just be technical to succeed.
Welcome to Salesforce Radio, your destination for insights, news, and community connections within the dynamic Salesforce ecosystem.
Today, we're very excited to have Amy Oplinger-Singh here with us from dataimporter.io. She is the head of growth and partnerships there and has had a very fruitful and colorful career here in the Salesforce ecosystem. Former MVP, am I correct about that?
You are.
Wonderful. So welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm very excited to chat this morning.
Yeah, and we were supposed to do this a couple weeks ago. It didn't happen. I'm happy we're doing it before the end of the year. Hopefully we'll get the episode out before the holidays. And maybe will be the last episode before 2025. So really fun to end, I guess, the first year of the podcast with you. Just scheduled something for January. So I've got something on the books now for 2025, but let's see
Nice.
where it goes. But yeah, we barely know each other. We had, I think, one discussion. So the idea of today's episode is really just to learn about you, hear about kind of your story in the Salesforce ecosystem, what brought you to where you are today, and anything that you can give to people who are, in similar situations or looking to get more involved.
Now, my journey in the ecosystem, I think it's well documented, and it's interesting to me because I am really still in shock that it is what it is. So I started back in 2015 on a leap of faith. My background was in sales. As a salesperson, I used lots of different CRMs. And when I got to a place that used Salesforce, I thought, oh my gosh, this is amazing. It made me look like a superstar because all I did was actually use the platform, unlike a lot of salespeople. And I was killing my quota. And then I went to a place that didn't have Salesforce and very bluntly told my manager, hey, if you would love it if I would come into your office and pull my hair out one by one until we get this other CRM, that's what's going to happen. So they called Salesforce, signed the contract, and then I was informed that since I was the only one who had used Salesforce before, I was going to help this consulting team implement. And
A bold move by you to tell them to use Salesforce, and even bolder move for them to say, okay, now it's your shot.
And even bolder that out of my mouth was like, sure. And then on the drive home, because this was back when you had to actually go into an office to work, I was like, oh my God, what did I just agree to? I am not technical. I am not IT. I'm going to look like a huge idiot. And so that stress fuels me. Anxiety has always been the underlying superstar in my career. And back then, there wasn't Trailhead. There was the Force.com workbook. So I found that on Google. I printed it out at my local CVS and had it bound, which I still have on my bookshelf. And sat down with my little notebook and got my dev org and learned Salesforce. And the consultant that I worked with was great. Implementation went fantastic. Really, all my role was, I was kind of overthinking what my role would be. I really just had to translate what the business needed to this consultant. They didn't have me doing any hands-on. So that was fine. And then afterwards, I asked to be the admin because I had Googled and heard that that was a job. I'm in Ohio. I had no idea of the whole ecosystem. I had very limited exposure to Salesforce, but I did ask for this admin position, and they said, "Oh, you're going back to sales, girl. This is going over to IT.
You notice on the CRM now.
You have to go make us some money so we can pay for these licenses that you just made us buy." So, I couldn't get it out of my head though. My experience on the project, my experience, training. It was a group of men who had been in the industry for 25 years selling with their pen and paper. Training them on how to use the system was so gratifying to me. And it was just like, I tell everybody, it like scratched an itch in my brain that I did not know was there. So that's how I got my kind of path set, right? I didn't know how I was going to go down it. I didn't know what I was doing to get in it. And I just kind of made the decision to revise my resume and zhuzh up the Salesforce experience, put it online. And again, I said I'm in Ohio and there was not this big Ohana messaging here, which worked out for me back then because the recruiter saw my resume stood out. Hey, we need somebody with your experience. And I got my first project. I think it was only within 2 weeks of putting my resume online.
Wow.
So yeah, it was like 0 to 100 real quick. I got a project at GE Lighting in Cleveland. No small company, and thank goodness for my anxiety because that really turned into a wonderful experience. And so that's how I got my start.
It's a great story. I mean, going back a little bit to that moment where you said, "Hey, we want you to, I want you to get Salesforce," and they go and they contact Salesforce, and then this implementation partner comes into it. Now, who did that search? Were you involved with that initial kind of figuring out who's going to implement Salesforce?
No, the AE brought that group in.
Okay, so at that point in time, Salesforce said, "Hey, we've got this implementation partner," and were they local to? Were they near the company's headquarters or something?
I don't remember because again, I had no idea. I didn't even know what an implementation partner was.
Right. You thought you were the implementation partner.
Right. I thought I was going to do it. I thought literally that it was just like any other thing, like Excel. You just start clinking around on it, you'll figure it out, right? I didn't know they actually paid people to come in and do that for you.
Or you're like, if I had known, maybe I would ask for a cut from the partner. Who does you?
Right? Like I was doing a service, but anyway. So yeah, I was completely clueless back then. I had zero knowledge of anything of the ecosystem.
Then you go on to becoming someone involved in the ecosystem. Was it one of these things where when you started getting involved with Salesforce, you started kind of seeing Salesforce in different places or noticing Salesforce in different parts of different businesses you're interacting with? Or was it still kind of like something you felt like it was your own personal thing and Salesforce is like the system and you've got some connection to it?
So I think that when I started, because my first project at GE was a training project, and then it evolved into more. And it was there that I was able to attend my first Dreamforce. It was not until I attended Dreamforce where I really was like, oh, this is a big thing. Like, this is a big deal. Even before going to Dreamforce, just being at GE, there was a person there that had known about the ecosystem more than me. And he was like, you have to be on Twitter. And I was like, oh, I hate Twitter. I can't stand it, but I'll go. And that's really where I started to build up my connections and my network and started following people. And then, when I learned I was going to my first Dreamforce, I made a little spreadsheet and said I wanted to meet these people. And I would sheepishly send them DMs like, hi, my name is Amy and I read your blog. And if you have time at Dreamforce, can I buy you a coffee? And to my surprise, everyone said yes. And it was
Wow.
like, meeting rock stars to me.
Sure.
At that first time. So it was amazing.
It's incredible. And yeah, I just went, it was my first Dreamforce this year. And, I've already been working the ecosystem for a number of years. And it was amazing to finally meet people, but also just to see people that, you've been kind of following, and some of them I did interact with, some of them I didn't, but it's great to be in that place where you can all of a sudden have that kind of human interaction with the people, who kind of play a big part in your professional life, even if they're kind of a third party. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely an incredible thing. And it's also really cool that, you went, it's not like you were, working for some small organization. You're messaging these people and you actually have a pretty amazing title. You're working for a big company who uses Salesforce. I'm sure Salesforce also, had a bit of a relationship with you as a client at that point.
Not really. I was a contractor. So
You were a contractor, but I'm saying
I was a contractor. So yeah. And so it was funny because my direct manager on the project, he was really excited and he had a certain thought about what his path would be in the ecosystem. And I was just happy to be there. I was happy to meet everybody. And one of the first people that I messaged, Christy Campbell, she was like, I can't believe you wanted to meet me. Like, why are you so excited to meet me? I said, oh my gosh, like I read your blog. You've helped me so much. It's amazing to me. Like, and it's just, it was just an incredible time period for me to find all these things out and just do a total kind of switch of career tracks.
And so at that point, you were basically you were like a contracted consultant. I don't know if you called yourself a consultant at that point, but that's what you were doing. And where did you go from there? How long were you on that project for?
So it was initially the project was a 30-day project, and I was supposed to train the AEs that were the new group of AEs that were coming in. But because I had made connections in different departments, they kept me on and kept me on. I was there for about 7 months from a 30-day project. So from there, I just have worked at a variety of partners in the consulting space, bounced around a lot, got to see a lot of different Salesforce use cases, a lot of different ways of how partners work. And then being a consultant has just really allowed me, or did just really allow me to build the other part of my career, which is not really what I get paid to do, but I enjoy immensely. And that's, get involved in the community.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And so you've seen different types of partners. I'm sure probably also different size, firms that you've worked with. What have your roles been in most of those different firms you've worked in?
Just consultant, whatever project they get, I go on it. I'm the worker bee, do whatever they tell me to do. And if I never write another user story in my life, I will be happy. But consulting is difficult. A lot of people, their path is different, where they might start as a developer and admin and then decide to go into consulting. I didn't have that kind of background. I just went right into consulting, and it is a whole different animal. It's a lot of different stressors. And for me, 2020, amongst everything else that was going on, it just kind of boiled everything up for me. And that's when I was like, yeah, I'm done with consulting. This anxiety that I've been fueled on isn't working for me anymore in this capacity. Being in the ecosystem and understanding it now, having been in it in 2020 for 5 years, I knew all of the different paths that were open, all of the different opportunities. And more importantly than that, even if something didn't exist, it might exist if I had the right conversation with somebody.
Sure.
So I made a concerted effort to change my path back into really what I wanted to do and go back into a sales-oriented role, but still helping people with Salesforce, still being that trusted advisor, but not necessarily hands-on keyboard. I'm not building any flows.
And when you were doing the consulting, was it mostly being with the customers and writing those user stories, understanding their needs, or were you also building flows? Were you also getting, into the system?
Everything. So it was anything that was needed with the project. Sometimes I would be the only person on the project, so I was doing everything. For a period of time, I had a freelance business that I did everything from sales to implementing to post-implementation success type support. So when you work for a partner, you really just never know what you're going to be doing from project to project.
Sure. And have you, were you able to really continue to skill up in terms of Salesforce? I mean, you said you've seen everything, all the different paths. Where did you see yourself going? I mean, while you were in the consultant space, before you decided, hey, I'm going to go back more to kind of where I came from in the sales space, but still helping out the community. Did you see a certain vision of yourself in the consulting world, or going in a more technical route? What did you try out in that period?
My career has always been based on non-technical things. And I like that. The talks that I give in the community, I don't talk about Salesforce. I talk about non-technical things. And I feel that that's playing to my strengths, because I found that while working on the platform was exciting to me, the more I got involved in the community side of things, the more I traveled the world and got to meet different people just because of this platform. That was more gratifying to me. So I think it all kind of came to a head in 2020. And I'm a notebook person. I talk about this a lot. I had 2 notebooks, what I love about my day, what I hate about my day. And the hate about my day was getting filled pretty quickly. I would take what I love about my day and like kind of search those terms in LinkedIn and see what job titles would come up, like trying to give me some idea of where to focus my energy. And customer success kept coming up. And I thought, I don't know how to get into that. I don't have any connections. I don't know how to go about this angle. But luckily for me, a recruiter picked out something in the universe that Amy's interested in this and landed me in a customer success manager role with that partner, Demand Blue. So that started my shift away from hands-on keyboard, moving away from that to being more a client advisor type role and sales oriented. And from Demand Blue, I moved on to Gears, which became Rafter One. That was fantastic until they had a mass layoff situation going on. So it was very gratifying to me to switch path, to not be hands on keyboard, but still maintain those relationships and be able to talk to people just about what they needed on Salesforce. What did they want to get out of Salesforce, and how could I help them get there without really being an AE with a quota for a license count. You know what I mean? I'm not selling you CPQ just because I have a quota for CPQ.
You didn't get to work for Salesforce.
No. So that's how I kind of switched my path. And that's what I tell everybody, that yes, if you hate what you're doing now, or if you can't find a role that you're doing now, think about it in a different lens. Think about it as an alternative as to what you see the defined job titles as, and kind of try to look at the other opportunities that might be hidden because you're not really seeing them. You're not uncovering them.
Yeah, it's interesting. So you said you started customer success, kept coming up. Customer success is one of those, obvious. It depends on what the product is, right? That's the first thing.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a consultant, the product is one thing. If you're a technical product, customer success can be a highly technical role, where you're, putting out fires every day, or, maybe you're trying to make people happy, or maybe you're trying to increase people's happiness, but really you're just sometimes trying to get them to a baseline of, okay, we're satisfied with what we've got and where we are. And, we're supposed to be here a month ago, but now we're, it's a month later and we're still not there. How do we get you there? But I'm not so familiar with the customer success role within kind of a consultancy. What's that like? So you had customers who were on long-term relations with the firm, and you were going in there and really just getting a feel for what they're doing, or is it on a project basis?
So it was managed service client. So they had a managed service deal, and oftentimes it was at the minimum a year. So you'd have a book of clients. Typically, what I saw in the 2 firms that I was at, it would be an implementation. And then from that implementation, you'd bring in customer success towards the end before, just close to go live, and say, hey, do you need support after that? And it would roll into a managed services contract. And so I would meet with my book of business, try to develop the relationships with them, and just understand, hey, what's your Salesforce roadmap? What do you need to work on for the next 6 months that I can help you with, that we can set you up with? So once your managed services is done, you're on your way and you look like an amazing person to your boss. And that was always my goal, was to just listen to them and try to understand, if I made them look successful to their boss, I was successful to them. So that was my main goal always.
And was there a certain size organization you were working with in that role?
So yeah, those were generally mid to enterprise level clients. SMBs so much aren't utilizing a large partner like I was at for a managed service. It was just too expensive for them. But in my own business, I did that post go live with I only worked with SMBs in my own business. So, because it was a huge gap in the market back then, they had nobody and they couldn't afford most partners. So it was nice as an individual consultant to be able to help small businesses and focus on the whole entire game rather than just, okay, you're implemented, I'm out of here. See you later. Good luck. And really helping them. So it was more gratifying in that respect on my own than, what you have with a partner. Because once the SOW is done, once the contract's over, you're out of there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's been kind of a theme on the podcast. I've spoken with a lot of people who, are more technical, come from a technical background or didn't originally, and then kind of got involved in the Salesforce world and climbed the ranks and worked at different places, and then also end up being like kind of on a contract basis with a couple companies, and then all of a sudden go to work for a partner and get fully in the partnership side, and then eventually go back to being a salaried Salesforce professional at a company that uses Salesforce, and they always have a lot to say about what they kind of can take from working with other clients to then bring that into their own organization. And I find it really interesting. Your path's a little bit different, obviously, because you weren't coming from the super technical side. You're really a communicator. You're someone who's dealing with people, coming from sales where it's all about communication and working with others. And now you're, back in a place where, okay, you're working kind of as the third party coming in and trying to take a bit of a view from above.
Mm-hmm.
And when did you start really going around and speaking to people and things like that at the events and stuff?
So I got involved in the Salesforce ecosystem in 2015. And then I saw on Twitter a call for speakers for a little event called Midwest Dreaming. And I read it and I thought, oh, what could I talk about? And I had an idea rolling around in my head based on a Women in Tech call that I had listened to. And I thought, this is a technical conference. This isn't a technical topic. I don't know if I should submit, but I did. Anyway, that's my thing. Tell myself no, and then just go ahead and do it. See what happens. And so I did. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't say I submitted. I wasn't on Twitter shouting to the world that, oh, I just submitted my call to speak, blah, blah, blah. And lo and behold, it was accepted. And the title of this session is, Are You an Imposter? Own It. And the topic is imposter syndrome. And it was a very vulnerable topic for me to, number one, speak for the first time at a Salesforce conference in front of people that I looked at as like, oh my God, they're all so technical. Number one, none of them are going to come to my session. It's just going to be me standing at the podium like this. Like, why did I submit? That's literally what I thought. And I'm sure I blacked out giving the topic because I don't remember too much about it other than the post conversation. After I was done giving my 20 minutes, I opened it up to the participants. The room was full. And the people that were there that shared literally brought tears to not only my eyes, but other people's eyes with their comments. So it just was kind of like this really super relevant topic at the time and touched people. And like, there were blogs after that saying this was the best session and all this stuff. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it. But here we are now in 2024. That's still the number one topic that I give. I give the same presentation. I've updated it a bit, but it still resonates. I was lucky enough to deliver it at Dreamforce. I tell people all the time, whatever you think that people don't want to hear, they do. So just go ahead and submit it. And yes, you might be vulnerable, but this is the one community that I feel like accepts that and really appreciates that. And that's something I've built my talking career on, is just topics that aren't technical. There's so many brilliant Salesforce people that can teach you exactly what you need to do on the platform, or crazy influential ways to do things, or innovative ways to do things. That's not me, but I'm all about everything else. And all of that is also important in your career. You don't have to just be technical to succeed. That alone has helped me connect to a lot of people. And I hear their stories constantly. I love hearing them because it's like, I'm this woman in Ohio who was going through a divorce with 2 small toddlers that completely turned her life around, completely changed the path just off of just one little decision and decide to jump for it. So if I can do it, I tell anybody, like, not to sound super wishy-washy and everything, but it's the fact of my career. And so I try to share that with people just to give them some sort of push. Like, yeah, I did it. You sure can do it too.
That's incredible. That's a really
Yeah.
beautiful story, and I'm excited to hear you speak at the next event that I go to, I hope. Um, what do you think it is like? So obviously you're coming from a lot of the people in the room are more technical, I would assume, right? A lot of the people in the room, a lot of times are probably people who are more the admins, the developers, and is that who comes to your talks, or do you feel like it's everyone from all across this ecosystem?
So I'll share a little story. When I developed the imposter syndrome presentation, I told you I was on Twitter and I had just like a list of people that I looked up to. Imposter syndrome at the time, I was only hearing women talk about it. And so I was very interested, like, do guys get this? Like, nobody's talking about it from the men's side. So I decided for my presentation, I was going to reach out to the men that I looked up to on my list and say, hey, I'm giving this talk. Does it mean anything to you? Can I use a quote from you? Adam Olshansky, who is like super famous in the Salesforce ecosystem, this mega developer who works at Google. I sent him this DM and he was like, oh my God, yes, 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 I feel this way. So that was a shock to me. So while you say, okay, all these people are super technical, I just get like, I don't know, so weirded out by that. Yes, people are technical, but I don't feel that that's a barrier to things. I don't feel like that's a separator, for the topics that I give. And in fact, the people that I think are given that label, or like I looked up to Adam, feel it even more because they're like, oh my God, am I really technical? Do I deserve these things that these people are saying about me? So I feel like I think that's why it resonates so much, because it kind of gives you that release gauge. You don't have to act like you know everything, because guess what? We're all in the same boat. We're all trying to figure out this next feature. It changes so much. It's so hard to just kind of keep paddling in the water, keep your head up and look like the expert. And inside you're going, oh God, am I the expert? Do I deserve that? It's a common theme. And that's what I love so much about it, about giving non-technical talks, because you connect on that. Like, there's so many people that come up to me and like, oh my God, you get me. Like, you got it, Amy, you get it. And you can't get that if I'm just walking through the details of how to do a flow.
I think it's like amazing. And I think, in this podcast it's always been on Zoom. And I've been amazed that no one has said, oh, can I just, maybe share my screen real quick? And that's what I do all day, right? I'm on Zoom all day and I'm sharing screens. And it's so important for everyone in any industry, and especially in an industry where a lot of times we're stuck behind a system, right? To be able to like, yeah, okay, maybe I have to make all these big decisions and I have to, consult with these big people in this company. And who am I? I'm someone who's at the end of the day learned a bunch of skills and has a passion for this. And how did I get here? And I think that's such a cool thing. I mean, it's obviously goes way beyond the Salesforce ecosystem. The nice thing about the Salesforce ecosystem is that if you're at one of those talks and you look around, well, then you already have something to relate to, right? We've already said, oh, yeah, we've all got the imposter syndrome, but we all also are in similar positions, more or less, because we're, helping run the backbone of these organizations. Whereas, if you just gave that talk, at a leadership seminar or one of these things, everyone's doing something completely different. There's not necessarily a common thread there. It's always cool to see how people really, I mean, until this point, at least, have been able to really stick with it and stay in the ecosystem and build their careers right within the Salesforce ecosystem, which is just an amazing thing in and of itself.
It truly is. And it's really, like I said, the platform could go away tomorrow for me, but if the community did, I would be devastated.
Right. And it's amazing. And I've said it before, it's like an optical illusion. I don't know. It's some sort of illusion that we can think about Salesforce as this like community, and the platform is there and it's in the forefront, but we're not even thinking about necessarily how it's being used day to day and who the users are, because there's such a connection between the people who are actually behind the scenes. And that's one of the things I love, that it's like, if you're ever in a theater production and you're backstage, or if you're, a concert and you're backstage, you can almost forget that everyone's in the front of the house having a good time, because like seeing all of the little inner workings, and you can get so into that whole world, in the backstage, so to speak. And that community doesn't, it doesn't go away. And as people change jobs and all the different things, and they go to different places, it doesn't go away. And at some point, so what year was it when you were nominated for Salesforce MVP?
2017 was my first year, and then I resigned myself. I don't know if that's the right term. I sent an email saying I don't want to be considered for renewal.
Uh-huh.
I'm very deliberate in my career choices and thoughts about, what's driving me and what's maybe more of a one-way relationship. So I requested to not be renewed. There was no guarantee I was going to be renewed, but I just took that decision out of the hands. I said, just remove my name. I don't want to even be considered. So I knew I didn't have the same dedication that it would require. So I haven't talked too publicly about that. I think only a few people know that I actually did that. A lot of people still think that I am an MVP, but I'm not. I gave
It's an MVP,
2019.
maybe always some level of MVP.
I'm going to tell you what, you're an MVP, whether you have somebody else's email that states your name to that, based on your own behaviors. And there's literally nothing that I did before differently than what I'm doing now. So in my mind, that's what a real MVP is.
That sounds completely legitimate to me. I definitely commend that. Yeah, and I mean the community. It's like I can imagine that there's kind of this MVP community, and listen, in any place, it's always nice. It's nice to feel recognized. I think the cool thing is that you can feel recognized just by speaking at an event, or of course being speaking at Dreamforce, which I assume that was probably after. Was that after your MVP, or was that when you were officially an MVP?
It was before and after. So I actually got to speak to Dreamforce before I even was named an MVP. And it's not something that I look poorly on at all. I just knew that I wasn't going to put the effort into the program that they required. So I thought that it was best for both that I withdraw myself from it. So it is a wonderful accolade. It is hard to get. There's no rhyme or reason to how people get them that we can tell. So there's nothing that I can tell people like, hey, do X, Y, and Z and you'll get a golden hoodie or an MVP. You know what I mean? There's nothing that I can tell people, but it is wonderful to have been recognized by that. And particularly since it's generally nominated by your peers, that's very meaningful to me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And kind of building off that, I mean, what would be, and I know you've spoken a lot, and you've spoken about this, I'm sure, in some of your talks, what would be like your advice for people listening to this who, either are getting into the ecosystem in, the last couple of years, or have kind of gotten to a place where, yeah, this is what they do, but they're looking for new direction. How would you, how would you recommend that they further themselves?
For me, the ecosystem is very broad. It's
Sure.
so many people. And what I did very early on was kind of build my network within the network. So there's a group of 5 people that I stay very close to that have remained my close people and kind of like my board of advisors, if you will. And we all rely on each other, and we all, help each other through all of these, because my story is not unique. I feel like everybody has the same story as me, honestly. we all support each other through these ebbs and flows. Right now in the market, it's devastating right now.
Yeah.
I went through 2 layoffs this year alone, and my current role was only because of my network. It was, the founder was connected with me on LinkedIn and reached out, and I thought he was reaching out to me for my freelance business. And it wasn't until a couple of calls that I realized he was asking me to join him.
That's amazing.
It was. So it was really nice. And that's my advice. And it's always been my advice in this ecosystem is you have to have a network. You cannot really, I don't think, go very far in this ecosystem without help. Every job that I've ever gotten has because of my network or my friends. And that's an aspect of the Salesforce ecosystem itself that I think is unique in that you have people that genuinely want to see you succeed. It's not a lot of competition. There are, there's always outliers. There's always the bad actors and any kind of thing. But in general, the people that you meet, tell me what you're looking for. Let me get my eyes on it. Let me refer you here. Let me refer you there. And genuinely want to see you succeed. So building your network is, I would say, more important than, trying to knock out 30 certs in a month. You need to have a network.
Right.
So focus on the relationships. That's my best advice to everybody. And it's been key for the last almost 10 years for me.
Well, I think that's a beautiful place to stop. I'm excited to, I hope, meet you in person and hear you speak. And everyone listening should definitely look out for Amy. Do you have any upcoming speaking engagements?
Well, I'm not speaking at Cactus Force, but I will be there in Arizona in January. And then the call for speakers is opening up for everything next year. So stay tuned.
Anything you have your eyes on?
Everything.
Love it.
I love the Dreamin' events specifically.
Sure.
I find that those are easier to connect with the community. And I get a lot more value out of the Dreamin' events. I'm really looking forward to True North Dreamin' this year because it's been kind of out of the schedule since COVID. So that's in Vancouver, I think in April. Texas Dreamin' is always on my list. Southeast, all the Dreamin', just all the Dreamin' in the US. I wish I could go to all of them. I wish India would bring back India Dreamin', but
That sounds great.
it was amazing. It was amazing. So I would go back there in a heartbeat if that came back. But there's a lot of other Dreamins in India now. So take your pick.
Well, Amy, I think you might have inspired me. I'm going to go look at the events also. Maybe I'll register to speak at one of them or try at least.
You need to, yes. And if you want a speaking partner, I'm happy to do so.
Love it. Well, Amy, thanks so much for joining Salesforce Radio. It's been a real pleasure. And have a great rest of the year.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you for tuning into this episode of Salesforce Radio. Don't forget to subscribe for more exciting discussions, expert tips, and exclusive interviews with industry leaders. Stay connected with Titan, plus the power of the planet's leading CRM. See you next time.